Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over how LTCN and BCHG could have deeper discount buying opportunities on the horizons, and we're going to talk about the rest of the grayscale trusts. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so before we get into that, and you guys are probably like, what the hell are you talking about? Let's go over the portfolio real quick so you guys can see that nothing's changed here. We have not bought anything. We have not sold anything. We're kind of just sitting flat as of right now. So GBAT is up considerably. It's actually up 41%. So I would say our call on that was pretty good to buy down there at that $8 level. Again, it was a little bit below $10, but one thing I've noticed when it comes to crypto and even some stocks is generally when we pick a zone, sometimes it could bounce perfectly off of that, but sometimes it could also actually go below or above whatever that zone is, what's known as a pump fake, or basically the technical term is a bear trap or a bull trap. I'll show you guys that on the chart in a minute. So the timing wasn't perfect, but it did work out nicely, at least in the immediate short term. It seems to be the case. So ETCG still down a little bit. GBAT up considerably. HZEN down quite a bit. But again, we only have like a few shares of this as of right now. Mana, we're also down a little bit on this one as well, although not nearly as bad as ETCG, but overall still in the green. So that's good. Okay. So let's talk about what a pump fake or a bull trap or a bear trap would basically look like. And another way that this could be seen is potentially as like a stop loss hunt. So some people like this is trading terminology now. We're not actually talking about investing at this point, but I will show you guys as soon as I can find out where the rectangle pattern is. I seem to have lost it here. So here we go. So basically, pretty much told you guys that I thought likely this thing was going to bounce somewhere in this area. And it actually did not. So, or not this area, but let me be more specific about this. So somewhere in here, basically somewhere in these candle tops here and these candle tops here. Well, pretty much what a bear trap is you see how aggressive this thing is coming to the downside. So initially what will happen in a bear trap is this thing will sell down and then it'll wick back up and then it'll move in the opposite direction. So market makers or big money or something like that, the people that run the market, so to speak, they're looking to stop people, or basically they're looking to grab liquidity before going in the opposite direction. That's what in this case, a bear trap would be. So people think it's going to dump and then, they try to short it or whatever. And then market maker or whoever will come down in here. They'll grab the liquidity as it's getting shorted, suck it back up with a volume push, and then boom, it goes straight back up in the opposite direction and the shorts get stopped out. And it would be the opposite effect on the bull trap case scenario. So something like this wick coming up here above this trend line, you can see how clean this trend line is. It touches the top of these wicks perfectly, except for this one. Tried to break out. Maybe people tried to go long here, and then the market makers or whoever came in here and said, nope, we're going to take your liquidity and push this thing down, and that's exactly what happened. So a lot of people will put their stops like just slightly above this trend line here, and that's a good way to get easily stopped out. That's why in futures when we do a 3-to-1 risk, so we'll have like let's say on the NASDAQ 100-point move, and we'll risk 30 points on the trade. Well, the 30 points is such a large stop that it's almost impossible for us to get stopped out on that trade unless the market's actually going to move in that direction. So, if the market makers are looking to stop hunt or stop loss hunt, they're not going to be able to reach ours before they move in whatever direction they're trying to go unless they're actually trying to push the market in that direction. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys want more clarity, just leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to put it in simpler terms for y'all. So let's get into LTCN. So why am I saying that I think likely these things could pull back even more than where they currently are? Maybe even deeper than the zone, although I'm not entirely sure about that. Again, this kind of range here is getting tight. It's pushing into support, but it's also being held down along this trend line. Well, one simple reason is because of the MACD. So you can see that the histogram is turning a lighter shade of green. That indicates an early shift in momentum. If this thing turns red, that indicates that sellers are taking over. And again, I'm not saying that to spook anybody. This is just, I'm telling you guys what's in the charts. Okay, I'm not trying to FUD here or anything like that. This is just simply what I'm seeing in the charts. So, very similar thing on BCHG, but again, we have not seen the MACD death cross yet. So, as you guys can see here on HZEN, for example, you see that the MACD was starting to converge here to the downside, and the histogram was turning a lighter shade of green, whereas when the price and the MACD were going up, you had this more intense shade of green. But then we saw a lighter shade of green and the price started pushing down, and then we got the MACD death cross, and then of course we're still pushing down. That's what I mean. So basically, in short, what I'm saying here is I think that the rest of these that have already had a MACD death cross, all of the rest of these trusts that have already had a MACD death cross are probably going to front run LTCN and BCHG. So by the time, what I'm saying here is these things, the rest of these will, in my opinion, not financial advice, in my opinion, they will probably bottom out before LTCN and BCHG recover in price, if we are to see LTCN and BCHG pull back based on this thesis. So, trying to think of how I can maybe show you guys what I mean here. So, let's see if I can find something to use here. I don't know if should be something I can use. Okay, I swear there was here it is. Okay, the brush. All right, so let's just say that this MACD death cross comes down like this, and then you get something like this, right? And then, of course, the histogram goes red, and then let's say that LTCN kind of comes down here, breaks the support, and then comes down to this trend line and bounces, right? And it goes boop, kind of zoop, gets sucked straight back up, and then it goes higher, gets a break of this trend line, of course, which the trend line can keep going down until the price breaks out. There's no set in stone price on that. So basically, this thing would go down and may or may not bottom out as the rest of these grayscale trusts are already starting to recover. And of course, what we would want to see on this is something like basically a MACD golden cross here. So kind of something like that, where the blue converges back above the red, histogram turns green, and then these start moving up as LTCN and BCHG are either bottoming or about to reverse to the upside. Again, I could be completely wrong about this. It's hard to say exactly, but that's kind of what I see happening. So as of right now, that trend line down here is roughly about 16 and a half. Well, yeah, about $16.50 as of the current price. So you still have support at $23.40 to $27. The high up here at roughly about $55. Sorry. So again, need to get past this control bar to go higher. Again, that's a bear control zone, just so y'all know. Clearly, based on this price, we did tell you guys that that would potentially be a problem before the price dumped in the past. So it turns out that that was actually correct. And then $75 to $80, somewhere in there, it could be the next stopping point, and then about 100 to 135. Again, bulls need to get through all those zones in order for us to push to the highs up here. And it could literally happen snap of a finger. If we get into an alt season or Bitcoin starts pushing to 150 grand by the end of the year, this could happen like a flash of lightning. It could absolutely happen. I'm not saying it's not going to, because I'm telling you guys that maybe the price will come lower in LTCN and BCHG. I'm just saying that it may not happen right away, which is good if you want to have more time to accumulate. So let's just do the measurements here real quick. So we'll do from basically, let's say the breakout point is where it pretty much sits right now to the previous wick high, about 81%. And alternatively, let's assume it gets down to the trend line. To the wick high up here, you'd be looking at about 198%. So BCHG, same thing. We have not had a death cross yet. Again, if we look at some of these other ones, you guys can see on a bird's eye view down here that pretty much almost all of these have had a MACD death cross, and they have all pushed down pretty hard. Again, a lot of people were trying to they were getting kind of mad and like, oh, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. Like it's not going down. I mean, we could have easily been wrong, and we would have been happy to be wrong. If LTCN had just shot straight up to like $10,000 a share, you think we're going to be mad about that? No, because we would have sold for insane profits. But as traders, we're just trying to show you guys like realistically what potentially could happen here. But again, the worst enemy of a trader is their emotions. So obviously, I can't tell you guys what to feel, but the best thing that we found is that just to keep our emotions in check and make sure that we're thinking logically about things. And of course, we've been doing this for so long that it's pretty much second nature at this point. But so we're getting a squeeze point here again, very similar to LTCN. So LTCN, you can see the trend line in the zone, very similar on BCHG here. This candle, again, we have a couple of days left, but this candle does look like it wants to go below this big fat red candle here. So the zone is $10 to $12.75, resistance $18.10 to about $20, and the wick high up there is about $24. If it cracks this zone, I would say likely, probably I don't think it's gonna come down to this trend line if I'm being honest, although it could. I think likely we're probably gonna stop somewhere around this next support, so $7 to about $7.80. Just to give you guys an idea, that move would be pretty large. So you're looking at about 43% down. How you guys want to go about, strategizing that, or if you want to, that's up to you. So we'll take two different measured moves here. So we'll assume either it's going to break out in the immediate short term, which could happen, 62% move to resistance and then 91% to that wick high. But if it does not, and it comes down to this zone down here, you'd be looking at 178% and then 232% respectively. So HZEN, as of right now, this thing from the wick high to where it currently sits is currently down about 58%. So again, that goes back to the thesis of by the time LTCN and BCHG bottom out, which could look something like this, maybe 60% total downside, these things might already be reversing to the upside. Of course, if Bitcoin dumps 30, 40%, that could change everything. That could nullify everything I'm saying right now. Definitely it's something that we're keeping on the table considering that. But it's pretty deeply discounted. So again, support is $3.80 to about $4.20. Resistance is $6.80 to about $8, and then 10.5 is going to be that wick high up there. So from the current level to the wick high is 141% move. ETCG, again, it is sitting nicely in between this channel. I suspect this red EMA is going to hold. If it does not, maybe this thing will bounce like around $9.50 or so. Because again, you have this these couple of wicks here that might hold. But I would say $11, $11 to where it currently sits, about $13.20 is a pretty good spot to get in. So let's just assume that you got in somewhere in the middle of the zone. You'd be looking at about 50 to a 69% move. Of course, if you want to wait for it to get lower down here at, let's say, these wicks or something, be about 110%. So ETH is still holding the channel. Again, the target is the top of the channel. That's $30.60. And then the cup and handle pattern, assuming this is a cup and handle, would be this long white bar up here. So you can see that's roughly about $54. So once again, in my opinion, the immediate best short-term targets to get into would be somewhere between 1750 to about the bottom of this range, or the bottom of this channel here. So roughly about $20. Again, where you guys want to get into, that's up to you. So looking at resistance here, you'd be as high as much as 146% to about 180% move. PhilG, this is one we're very strongly looking at. Again, I'm not going to give you guys a yes or no as to whether we're going to buy it, because people are getting like kind of out of control about that. But we're looking at it. Okay, I'll just tell you that. So $40 or thereabouts is going to be the support. The swing high up here is about 390. And again, we do have the actual file coin, so it would make sense for us to buy this too. But the move up here would basically from that zone to the wick high would be 930%. And I do think this is possible. Again, we have not seen an actual alt season in crypto yet. So GBAT, This thing basically had this bear trap here, and then it pumped back up. As you guys can see, it did actually hold support, although you wouldn't know that it's actually going to hold that support on the weekly time frame if you see a red candle all the way down here in the middle of the week. You wouldn't know it's going to hold like that. And then it eventually, some point later in the week, it gets sucked back up to the upside, and then you're like, oh crap. So it's not going to sell off. Yeah, that happens a lot. So again, looking for a break of the trend line. This thing has had a hammer candle reversal. So I'm suspecting this thing's probably going to break out soon. I don't know when. But again, the zone is roughly about $8 to $10. And we did get pretty much almost exactly at the bottom of the zone. So pretty good timing. And the top is 32. So if I just measure it from where we got it to the top, it'd be about 300%, or roughly about a 4x on that. So GLIV, this thing, once again, it did kind of wick off of the zone, but this is a pretty big bar, and it did come below this candle bar here. So I think it probably is going to come down to this zone. We'll just have to wait and see, but that's about $12 to $14.50 to $81 at the top. So if you just tried to wait to get into the zone and rode it all the way to the swing high, it's a 500% gain. Or, I mean, if it went from $10 to $80, you're looking at an 8x on your money. So that's pretty good. G-Link, this thing went up, and now it looks like it's trying to hold back down. So it looks like somebody's trying to sell into this green bar here, which means that the bears might be trying to take control. So there's no candle bar closes above these 4 bars here, as you guys can see. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But if it keeps going down, it's probably going to come into the zone. So that's about 65 to 83. And then the swing high up there is 220. So from roughly about the bottom of the zone to the swing high, you'd be looking at a massive 216%. So GSOL, this thing's still not doing much. It's kind of just squeezing here, as you guys can see. Actually, if I move this over a little bit, you guys might be able to see this a little bit more clearly. So it's creating some kind of, it's coiling basically is what this thing is doing. Now, whether it's going to go up or down, we won't really know until we get the confirmation. So it looks like it is going to happen soon. It might take maybe another week or two, and then we'll see it move one way or another. But with the MACD death cross just starting to form, I would say that honestly, this thing probably is more likely to break down. But, I could be wrong. I mean, it could go up. Just don't know yet. We don't have the confirmation. So 170 to 200 on the support, and then roughly about 580 on the resistance up there. So from the support to the swing high, you'd be looking at about 220%. So GXLM, again, roughly about the bottom of this trend line is going to be the first support. So that's about currently $32.50. And then somewhere around these candle bottoms here at about $20, I would say would be the next level of support. So from the bottom of the zone to resistance, you'd be looking at about 72%, and then the wick high up there is about 106% move. Excuse me. So Mana, this one has come back down into the support. Was kind of not really expecting that, because this is actually a pretty bullish bar right here. But again, just because the bar is bullish does not mean that it immediately has to move up to the upside. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. Like you guys can see, this is kind of a really small green candle. You wouldn't think much of anything of it. And then you have this explosive move to the upside. So the markets can be very tricky sometimes, very hard to predict as to what they're going to do. But the support is roughly about $17.50 to $20. And the wick high up here, as you guys can see, is $70. So pretty fat move up there. The move on this thing, assuming you bought it at support and held to the wick high, is about 265%. So Zcash, this is actually in the buy zone now. Whether it's going to hold in the buy zone until the end of the week or not, that remains to be seen. Again, you have a MACD death cross, so current support is 430 to about 510. Resistance is 730 to about $8, and the wick high is up there at about 1020 per share on this thing. So from the current price to the swing high, you'd be looking at about 115%. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this content, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.